Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, and exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
Well, we got a little bit of an echo going on, but we'll find out what's going on there. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, you're on JW World News, and we're glad you're on here with us tonight. My name's Rick Farron, and I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world. And we've got a number of stories we'll be discussing tonight. In fact, let me just tell you some of the stories we'll be hitting on. A man who allegedly opened fire and started fires in Kingdom Halls in Washington a few years ago in Washington State. Well, he's now being accused of a hate crime. They found out who he was. And the ICSA, Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse. Well, I'll tell you what, in England, they're coming down strong now on the witnesses. They're going to have to report child abuse, even though they've been trying to get away from it for years. And also, we learned a lot tonight about sexual abuse in the Watchtower. Watchtower in Washington State does not have to report any sexual abuse. They're trying to change the laws. Well, wait till you hear about some of this. It's just absolutely crazy. And Jehovah's Witness sex abuse scandal was mentioned on BBC News. I mean, that's the all week long. That's all I've been finding is I'm seeing all of these problems that people are coming across on the internet concerning the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're covering up child sex abuse. So anyways, you're on with us here tonight. As I say, my name is Rick Farron. I'm glad you're here with us. And anyways, I'm coming to you from the apostate capital of the world. Now, I know there's many people who listen to the program, and they say, geez, Rick, I'd like to speak up, but I'm afraid the elders in my congregation are listening. I'm afraid my relatives are listening. Well, let's not believe they are. I mean, why would they be on here? Sometimes they may be. But if you feel uncomfortable, we have the voice changer, and I can change your voice. But, I've been bringing up every week, just speak up and tell me you want the voice changer, but you're even afraid to do that. Because you think, well, gee, even if I speak up now, they'll hear me. So what you want to do is if you want to speak up, just cough. Just come on and open the line up and cough a little bit. And then I'll know that you want the voice changer. And I can see you coming in on my computer screen. I'll put you on the voice changer. So we can try that, right? Now, friends, I want you to know that we've got a lot of things going on here tonight. We got Barbara Anderson coming up at 9:30. You're going to really enjoy that program. She's going to spill the beans tonight on many things, so she'll be with us at 9:30. But what I wanted to start off with here tonight, we'll get right into it. Right now, if the average person Googles Jehovah's Witnesses for 1/2 hour, they will know more about their history than a lifelong dedicated Jehovah's Witness. They will. It's all there. It's only a mouse click away. And after waking up, as I did back in 2005, it became obvious that by looking on the internet, you can find so many things contrary to what the Jehovah's Witness organization was teaching us. The internet, as we've always said here on the Six Screens, is the great equalizer. But friends, the gig is up. The monkey died. The circus is over. Who's left? Who is left? People are leaving the organization big time. So who's left right now in the organization? Well, it would be the ignorant. It would be the arrogant. It would be people that are afraid for whatever reason. Geez, if I leave now and Armageddon comes, I'm a dead duck is what they might be thinking. And also the other people left in there are people with a grade level 5 mentality. People who think like an 11-year-old child. Those are the only ones left. Now, I was in for 50 years, and, I had no idea, just like many of you guys listening in had no idea of what was really being falsely stated in the Watchtower. We didn't know about the failed predictions, did we? Of 1914, 1925. We had no idea about Beth Sareem. We had no idea about the child sex abuse cover-ups. No idea about how they were wrong the year that Jerusalem got destroyed. They say 607, but now we're finding it's 587. So we had no idea at all. And now you get on the internet. All you have to do is be on the internet for 1/2 hour and it all unravels. It really, really does. So now let's just think about this. Now, let's say that you as a Jehovah's Witness, you go to a person's door in the door-to-door ministry. So you go to the person's door and the person initially shows interest. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. You guys are doing a great work. And I wish my church would work like you guys do. You get out there, you're preaching the kingdom. They have no idea, the householder, that Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. So, they initially show interest, but when the Jehovah's Witness leaves, they go on Google and bingo, up pops all of this negative information about the Watchtower. Friends, you guys know it. Yeah, look, I know sometimes I'm preaching to the choir here, but you do it, I do it. If you're going to buy something, even if you're going to buy a toaster, I wanted to buy a toaster, to have some toast in the morning. So I Googled it before I bought it to see what's the best toaster to buy. So, if you're going to Google toaster to find out what toaster to buy, don't you think a person who is going to get involved with a religion that knocks on their door and invites them to the Kingdom Hall, don't you think for 1 second that they're not going to Google that? Of course they are. Really. The internet, friends, is a cancer to the cults. It really, really is. It's killing them. And really, before I used to say that they're dying from, one little cut at a time, 1,000 little cuts. You've heard that saying. No longer. Blocks of negative news is coming across the internet, especially this week with all of the sex abuse cover-ups in the Watchtower. So, yep, the internet is cancer to the cults. They're going to die. The Watchtower is on life support. Really? Now you say, Rick, are you looking through rose-colored glasses? No, I've got glasses. They're not rose-colored. But I'm telling you, I believe you know it anyways. But I'm going to reinforce your thinking. How can an organization that is so evil, so corrupt, so deceitful, how can they manage to get new recruits? I have to tell you, they're trying. They're trying hard, but people are waking up. They're smelling the coffee. They're not going to join the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're getting a few here or there, but it certainly isn't the way it was in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Stick a fork in the Watchtower. Take them off the grill. They are cooked. Well, that's my thoughts tonight. But anyways, we got a lot of stories to talk about. Now, I know you guys remember. You remember we talked about it a few years ago. 2018, actually up through 2020, in the state of Washington, way out west from where I live, there were multiple kingdom halls and assembly halls that were set on fire in the state of Washington. Remember when we talked about this? And you guys probably remember it. I'm going to put some pictures up here because I want you to see it. And we talked about these kingdom halls that were destroyed by fire. And there was a number of them that were. And also somebody took a gun and shot it at the kingdom halls. We talked about that too. So for a couple of years, 2018 to 2020, Kingdom Halls, Assembly Halls in Washington State were being, well, this whoever it was trying to burn them down. So the FBI, the ATF, and the local sheriff, they offered a $61,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the arsonist. Now, I'm just going to give you an idea so you guys can see the magnitude of these fires. It was terrible what was going on. On March 19, 2018, there were 2 arson attacks on Kingdom Halls. One on Tumwater Road, or the Tumwater Kingdom Hall in Washington, and the second was on Kane Road in Olympia. The damage was minor, but nonetheless, this arsonist was trying to burn down the Kingdom Halls. Now, we had people call into the program. We talked about it. We're saying it might be a mad, irate apostate, that maybe his wife was disconnected from him or his family. But I'm going to tell you who it was, so stay with us. And then we learned on May 15, 2018, a Kingdom Hall in Yelm, Washington, it actually got 35 rounds of bullets that were actually shot at the Kingdom Hall. Those bullets did $10,000 worth of damage to the structure. And let's move on a little bit. I mean, I'm going to tell you more about Kingdom Hall fires. Let's go to Olympia, Washington on July 3rd, 2018. A Kingdom Hall was completely destroyed in Olympia, Washington. So, I mean, it kept going on and on and on. December 7th, another arson was reported. It goes on and on and on. So a number, I believe it was 8. Did I say 8 in the beginning? I believe it was 8 Kingdom Halls, or seven arsons in one shooting. So a total of 8 incidents at a Kingdom Halls all over Washington State. So you say, okay, well, why are we talking about that tonight? This is a few years ago. Well, I want to report to you that they found out who was doing this. It was a suspect was originally identified as Michael Jason Laves, a.k.a. Mike V. Diamond Starlet, a professional biologist who runs his own business. You say, what? No, it wasn't even apostate, so I'm glad to hear that. That just would have brought, bad feelings toward the apostates. So we have a man here, wasn't an apostate, Michael Jason Laves. Now, law enforcement has obtained electronic evidence that places Lays as the culprit here, as the person who did this. Electronic evidence also shows that accounts registered by Lays were used to conduct searches of the Watchtower in the Kingdom Halls that he was actually going to attack. He was searching them online. So it looks like they do have their man. I mean, he's being held in prison right now, or in jail, until the final hearing on this. But you say, well, what would cause a person to go out and shoot bullets at a Kingdom Hall? Well, what would allow a person to want to light fire and completely destroy at least 2 or 3 Kingdom Halls? I mean, burn them to the ground. I'll come back on here so you can see me. So that I showed you the pictures. If you're on YouTube, you saw them on Facebook. But here's what we got. Who is this guy, Lays? Well, he said that he told the authorities that he was haunted by spirits who told him to do bad things. Oh, all right. Well, we have a person that's a little under the weather here, mentally ill perhaps, right? So he's got spirits that are telling him to go burn down Kingdom Halls. What is that all about? Well, in the article here I'm reading, they also explain that Lays, the culprit here, he believes these spirits are the dead Jehovah's Witness relatives of an ex-girlfriend and that Lays hates the Jehovah's Witness religion. All right, stop right there. So this guy Lays had a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend, who is one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And he can't stand the Jehovah's Witnesses. Maybe they were giving her trouble. Maybe they broke up his relationship. It doesn't say. I'm just thinking out loud. So all of a sudden here, Mr. Lays, he has this vendetta against Jehovah's Witness kingdom halls. Now, his friends also say not only was he moved by bad spirits, he was also into heavy drugs and alcohol use. He had serious mental health issues. Now, of course, the suspect Lays, he totally denies these accusations, and he claims that the United States misrepresented the evidence. I don't know how they could misrepresent the evidence, but so far, he's in jail right now. He's in jail right now, and what they're waiting for before they actually get involved in a grand jury and begin to go to trial, they're waiting for the Attorney General of Washington State, Mr. Garland, the Attorney General. They need him to be able to constitute this as hate crimes. See, because he really was going around burning down Jehovah's Witness kingdom halls. That would be a hate crime. So I wanted to bring that up tonight. I just wanted to finish that story because we talked about it a few years back. And we were all wondering, was this an apostate that did this? Well, I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad it wasn't. It was a mentally ill man, but he had a vendetta against the Watchtower. So I wanted to bring that to your attention tonight. Anyways, well, any thoughts on that at all? I mean, you guys probably forgot about that story, but it was a big story when we talked about it a couple of years ago. 8 kingdom halls, 7 that you tried to burn down, and 1 that you shot at and caused $10,000 worth of damage. Imagine that. $10,000 worth of damage by shooting at the Kingdom Hall. But anyways, I wanted to bring that story to you. And, you know, there's so many stories that come across the internet that are really exposing the Watchtower. Man, they are getting a tarnished image. Nothing good. I don't read anything good. Nothing at all good. Everything I read about the Watchtower is
Hey,
just...
Rick?
Yes.
I wanted to just mention, you know, sometimes because we're apostates, or we call ourselves apostates, they think that we want bad things to happen to Jehovah's Witnesses, and we don't. We do not. I'm just glad that no one was shot or that there was no one in the halls when he tried to burn them down, because that really would have been a tragedy. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, thank you. No, it would have been a tragedy, Susan. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely, it would have been really even worse. This guy could be facing the death penalty. I don't know if they have it in Washington, but terrible. All right, who else is on there with us?
Rick?
Yeah, go ahead. You're on with us, Shep.
That's true.
Yes.
I got that Google's alert last night, and it was full of that story, right? And there was a couple of reporters that worked for CNN that put it on CNN on their website. Well, what I did, and I had their names down at the bottom of the article. And I said, well, CNN needs to be putting some other stuff on there too. So I Googled their names. This is easy to do. Anybody can do this. You Google the name of the person who wrote the article, and it will probably pop up in Facebook Messenger, like all the other news commentators. And then you can forward it on their Facebook thing and let them know what else is going on. You can get anybody on there you want. Any newscast that you put on there, Google his name and put it on Facebook and see what you come up with, and email him or message him an article on that stuff. That's good stuff. Anyway, that's it.
Well, very good. Well, thank you, Chewy. Well, no, it is. It's amazing. It's amazing, and Chewy will testify to it that the Watchtower's got all this bad news coming out. Do we have someone else on there want to make a comment? Go ahead. All right. Okay, we're gonna move on here. So just hold on, everybody. We got more stories to talk about tonight. We got a full night of activity here tonight. So hang in with us. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, this is Apostle.
Yes, Linda.
I was reading some of the transcript, and what I found really interesting is that he represented himself in court and kind of sounded like he knew what he was talking about. But I just found that very interesting, that's all.
Well, a lot of these goofy nuts, they do try to represent themselves in court, including that man I saw on Fox News this week that ran the people down up there in Waukesha, Wisconsin during that parade. So he's representing himself.
Oh, wow.
And it's terrible, but
Okay.
but he's mentally ill. And at least that's what he's trying to prove to the court. But this man here definitely has mental issues in trying to burn these kingdom halls down. And I don't advocate that. I want people to know here, folks, I would never advocate you going out and burning down a kingdom hall. I just want that to be put on the record.
No,
Yeah.
no, we apostates are definitely not about burning down halls. That's for sure.
Apostle,
Okay,
babe,
bye-bye.
you're a kind and gentle woman. I cannot pitch you burning a kingdom hall down. I can't. All right. Now, Anne Marie,
No,
Anne Marie, I think Anne Marie, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say Anne Marie would. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Carrie in the suite.
Yes, Carrie.
You're talking about the word apostate. You know what? I don't like that word, and I don't like to be labeled that because that's the organization's language. And I'm not going to let them have any more power over me than they already have, but I consider myself an XJW. That's it. I'm an X, but I'm not an apostate in their term, in their language. But that's about all.
Well, no, I can see. No, hang on, Carrie, hang on here with us now. Don't go anywhere. Now, I appreciate you making that statement, and you can say whatever you want. And you are an ex-witness. Some people use the word freedom fighters. The more common accepted term is apostate, but you don't have to use it. But, at first I was concerned about that word too, but it has a broader meaning. You can really use apostate in so many things. If you decided to stop shopping at Walmart, you would be an apostate of Walmart. So by definition, So by
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so by definition, an apostate is one who stands away from the teachings of the Watchtower, or one who stands away against anything. They stand in the opposite direction. So that's why we use it. But I can understand it. Anything the Watchtower does and uses, I can see you want to throw it in a trash barrel. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of, it used to aggravate me a lot. It doesn't, so much, but I hate labels.
Can I butt in for a second?
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
Stay with us.
Interrupt, but
yeah,
I'm on a close schedule, and the clock's clicking, so I've got the dirt on the whole Yelp thing, a little bit. But I'm anonymous. You don't know me, nobody. All right, but basically, it was an automatic rifle, 3 a.m. The area actually is full of nutcases and whack-jobs. It's really, we've been vandalized over there a number of times. This was just the first time we've actually been able to catch someone, because they shot up the place. Also, all the halls there have been all the congregations there are just packed like sardines into a place called Lacey in a single congregation. Anyway, I've done some, but I'm afraid I can't really say because I don't know who's listening. But so it doesn't surprise me that the guy is insane, or rather, I've heard about it a while ago. I thought it was 3 ghosts that he said he was haunted by, but like I said, if you know anything about that particular road, it's way out in the sticks. The fact that someone's crazy and doing destruction actually is not very new. I personally doubt that he went around and caused those 7 other fires, because there were actually fires in mosques and in Jewish temples of worship as well, but no one's kind of paired all those things together despite being around the same thing. Anyway, that is the dirt. All right, bye. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for coming in, brother. Don't you be a stranger. You come back and see us again. We always love to have new ones call in. Well, that's good. Thank you. Anyways, yeah, well, he evidently lives in the area. So there you go. I mean, I'm sure it's all over the newspapers out there. So let's see what's going on. I just want to make sure. I guess some people are saying there's no sound on Facebook. No sound on Facebook.
There is now.
Oh, there is. Okay.
There is now.
Okay, just checking. So anyways, let's take a look and
Yeah.
see what else we got going on. Thank you, Kerry, for coming in and chiming in
You're
with us.
welcome.
Always good to hear from you. You bring a certain calmness. You bring a certain calmness to the program. Thank you, Kerry. All right.
Well, thank you.
All right. So let's see what else is going on behind the curtains. Let me see what we got here. Well, the ICSA. Do you know what that is? The ICSA. Well, they have their final report on child sex abuse in England and in Wales. Now, the ICSA, that's the International Inquiry Child Sex Abuse. Yeah, it's kind of like the Australia Royal Commission. So now we have England and Wales. So they're looking into all of the child sexual abuse that takes place in those countries, and they're going to clamp down. They've had enough of it, just like in Australia. And who do you think is really mentioned as one of the top organizations for covering up sexual abuse? You got it, the Watchtower. So what the ICSA is actually uncovering is they're finding that so many religious organizations, as well as other organizations, are involved in sex molestation. I'm just going to take a look here. We have some people that we got to mute here because they're not muting themselves. I'm going to mute. Guy, I'm muting you right now. We got to keep your phone muted so we can keep a nice, clear line. So what we're finding out here in England and Wales is that there's so many perverts. There's so many pedophiles. And now here we have in Wales and England, 100 men, we're talking here, Jehovah's Witnesses. I went through their paperwork the other day, and I found 100 men, Jehovah's Witness men, in positions of responsibility in their Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall congregations. They're accused of child abuse. So where we have 100, but that's not, here we have 100 that are actually being brought out here by this commission, but that's not how many were abused. That's just 100 men in positions of responsibility that were accused of child abuse. Maybe some of these men they molested 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kids. So it could be hundreds. It could be hundreds of children that have been molested in England and Wales. Now, these men, internally, Jehovah's Witnesses that go to the Kingdom Hall, they don't know about all of this because they don't look it up. And it's the same thing with you and me. When we were going to the Kingdom Hall, did you know you could have been sitting next to a pedophile? Did you know if you let your children go to the bathroom, they could have been molested? That never came across my mind. Oh, I thought that everyone sitting in the Kingdom Hall, these are Jehovah's people. These are the most loving people on the planet. Man, was I wrong. I would not dare let my children go to the bathroom alone at a Kingdom Hall or a convention. That would be terrible. They have so many wicked men well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna let you know that there was a Watchtower back in May 2019. So as all of this started coming out, and it was really getting popular. I should say it was the headlines in so many papers that Jehovah's Witnesses were molesting children. So they had to come out with a Watchtower article. Now, the Watchtower article was May 2019. Now listen what they said in the article. This makes me sick. I think it makes you sick too. Now listen what they said in the article. It said that there are wicked men and there are impostors who have found their way into the congregations, or that some professing to be part of the congregation have succumbed to perverted fleshly desires and have sexually abused children. Watchtower, May 2019. Stop right there. Let's just stop right there. I want to talk about this for a second. So here we have the Watchtower once again covering up. Oh, no, it's not us. It's not, full-fledged card-carrying Jehovah's Witnesses that are doing these wicked acts. These are men who are imposters, and they found the way into the congregation, and they've succumbed to their perverted fleshly desires. That is a bunch of baloney. Bunch of baloney. That is not the truth. So, they have to cover this up, but the world, the governments are now catching up on Jehovah's Witnesses. The countries are now saying, hey, Jehovah's Witnesses, you guys are odd. Norway, Belgium, Sweden. Look at Russia. They have an extreme stance on the witnesses. But so many countries, in England now doing this investigation. How much can the Watchtower take? Take it off the grill is what I say. It's already cooked. It's already cooked. We do have.
Rick,
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick thought. When I came into the cult, it was Jehovah's Spirit directs everything. And if somebody was doing something wrong in the congregation, like having sex with children, it would be found out by the elders and they would deal with it, disfellowship him or whatever. We're finding out that the people that are getting caught doing these, pedophile stuff, they're elders, they're servants, they're not just a rank and file. And you know what? They're getting caught by the authorities. They're not getting caught by Jehovah's Holy Spirit telling the congregation doing the right things and telling the authorities. No, they cover it up because they're a cult. Thanks, Rick.
Well, you're absolutely right, Dick, and that's exactly what they do. And they're continuing to try to get away with it. But now countries are catching up on them, and we're seeing that, hey, this is really going to be detrimental, that this is going to be the death nail to the Watchtower. How many stories can you cover up when you stop and think about it? So anyways, in this report by the Independent Inquiry into Sexual Child Abuse in England and Wales, in this report, what they're trying to do here is make it mandatory that anybody, just like they did, remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the state of Illinois, that if you're in a position that is around children, a teacher, a policeman, a clergyman, that you will have to come forward and report it. So they're making it mandatory that if something's going on and you don't report it, there'll be no games being played. Up till now, there's been games being played. But now they're seeing that if you don't report it, you could now have a new criminal offense put against you. So if you're an elder and you're listening to the program in England somewhere or Wales, you better get with it. I'm telling you right now, just stop being one of Jehovah's Witness elders. Step down. So that's going to be a criminal offense if you know something's going on. And friends, I know you don't have to be, that higher up in the Watchtower to know that sexual molestation, if something's going on in the congregation, don't you think all the elders know? They talk. And boy, if they don't report it now, they could have a criminal offense against them and thrown in prison. Now, there's also a second concern. what about these organizations? If we have 100 men listed in this report coming out of England who are Jehovah's Witness men that have been involved in sexual child abuse, what is going to happen to the people or the victims they abused? Well, what they're trying to do in this report or this activity that England is involved in going against child abuse, they want these, just like in Australia, they want the organizations, the businesses, whatever it would be, the religions that have been abusing these children to come forth with a national redress. You say, well, what's the redress? Well, that is what is a plan to pay back the victims. So provide some monetary redress for the children who were sexually abused. So this is what they're asking for in England. So let me tell you something. Like I just said, if you're an elder, they could come after you. And if you've been covering this up, the Watchtower may not have your back on this, and I rather doubt that they would. So, boy, you could land up paying thousands and thousands of dollars for just covering this up. So I want you to think a lot about it. I mean, I am so glad to see all of these countries coming against the Watchtower. This is such an amazing thing. So I'm so glad to see this happening. And it's not just happening in England and Wales. It's happened in Australia. And it's going to happen here soon, too, I hope. I really, really hope. So right now, the law...
Hey, Rip.
Yes.
I'd almost bet money. This is Thomas Hawks in Lawrence, Kansas. I'd almost bet money that the Watchtower would never have their back. They would just throw them under the bus so quick our heads would swim. They could care less about anybody that's an elder or a ministerial servant. I guarantee you, they will not ever have their back. I could almost bet money on that.
Well, I agree with you, Thomas. Very, very good. Very good comment. So this law that the inquiry in England is trying to set forth will place a duty to report child abuse on anyone who witnessed it or was told about it by children or perpetrators. So let's just say that you're an elder in a Kingdom Hall in England, and a little kid comes with his parents even and says, Brother Smith, put his hands on my children where he shouldn't have. It's now the obligation of that brother that heard that to report it. If he doesn't report it, it's a crime. So, I mean, this is clamping down. This is clamping down. So I'm glad to hear all of this. But, the Watchtower has always been able to weasel out of this. And they always tried to weasel out of it on the basis of what they call penitent privilege. Well, we're not like cops. We're not like school teachers. We're not like coaches at school. We're religious clergy. And when people, confide in us and tell us their problems, we don't have a responsibility to report that. So they've got away with this for years. This is where England's starting to clamp down. And now let me just tell you, and I want you just to think about this. The following persons are being designated as mandated reporters. So just listen to this. These are people that have to be mandated reporters. It's your obligation. It's your position to report child sex abuse. Any person working in regulated activity in relation to children under the Safeguarding and Vulnerable Groups Act. All right, any person working with children, any person working in a position of trust as defined by the Sexual Offenses Act, police officers. So a lot of witnesses that read this, now there's more to it, but a lot of witnesses that read just what I read to you, they say, well, that doesn't apply to us. It doesn't say anything there about clergy or religion. But there's more to this, and I'm going to show you why the witnesses are being charged here. So, a witness would read this and say, well, any person working in regulated activity in relation to children, well, elders aren't working in regulated activity in relation to children. They did tell you that. And they say that, an elder is not working in a position of trust with children. But hold on, there's more. There's more articles to this. So I want you to read this. First of all, before I read you section 22A, I just want to tell you that elders are in a position of trust. I hope that you are not thinking that they aren't. I mean, how many times I can remember letting my children go out in service. If I wasn't going to be able to go out, well, go ahead out with Brother Jones and his car group. Oh, my goodness. What could have happened? God only knows. So, yeah, they're there because I trusted the elders. So I'm going to say just on that premise alone that elders are in a position of trust. I certainly wouldn't suggest otherwise. But wait a minute. This inquiry even goes deeper. Now, listen to this. Section 22A, kind of went through it this week and trying to see exactly where witnesses would. Well, my goodness, we got some things going on here. Well, I just lost that, but let me go back here. Okay. So let me just read this to you. Section 22A, and it kind of now it ropes in for sure that a witness elder would be in a position of trust. It says a person in a position of trust in relationship with another person. And then it mentions coaches, teachers, supervisors, instructors, whether they're in sport or religion. Instructors in sports are religion. So now they're saying here that, that would include the elders, wouldn't it? Do they instruct religion? Can an elder get off on this and say, no, I don't instruct religion? Yes, they do. So this now is showing us without any hesitancy, without any question of doubt, that this new child sex law, sex perversion law that they're putting forth in England and Wales will indeed cover the Jehovah's Witness Church. And there's no reason or any way that they can back out of it. As a matter of fact, I even got thinking more. I even got thinking more. Now, it also says here that it could be a coach, it could be a teacher, it could be a train conductor. I mean, a train conductor? I mean, really? I mean, but it could be, right? He's instructing children. Come on, little kids, get on the train now. You sit here. Or anyone who supervises or instructs on a regular basis. Now, that got my fancy. Anyone who supervises or instructs on a regular basis. I'm going to throw something else into the works. Wouldn't that be a Jehovah's Witness that's studying the Bible with someone? Wouldn't that include a Bible study? They are instructing on a regular basis, aren't they? And maybe some of them are children they're instructing with, or instructing to. So, I mean, this is opening Pandora's box. I think all Jehovah's Witnesses, especially pioneers, if you are conducting a Bible study, you are actually instructing on a regular basis, are you not? Boy, I would hope that all witnesses, because, Jehovah's Witness organization, they make everyone a witness, right? Everyone's supposed to be a Jehovah's Witness. I mean, everyone's supposed to be a minister who is a Jehovah's Witness. So I just thought I'd bring this all out tonight. So, yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses, they're coming under fire in England and Wales. And I'll tell you what, they're going to have significant problems if they fail to report. And this report does look like it's going forward. So this is good news. As I sit here this week and read over all of this, all I see is child molestation problems coming across the internet with Jehovah's Witnesses. How many perverts are in this organization? I say, really, clamp down on these bums, world governments, and you're doing it. And I really, really thank you. You know, we can only do so much. I can only do so much, speaking from my little studio here in Boston, Massachusetts. I can only do so much. But by the world governments coming down on these guys, it's making a very, very big difference. Well, you're on 6 screens, JW.
Hi there,
Go ahead. Go
oh,
ahead.
hi there. Yeah, I'm calling from the UK. Thanks so much for covering what's going on over here. Obviously, we still have a long way to go. Australia led the way, I think. Don't know what other people think, but they did a great job. We have a history here within the hierarchies. Maybe you do in the US and other places. Like one of our prime ministers, Edward Heath, was exposed as a child molester. So that was, it's very institutional. So let's just hope that this moves forward. Will it work? I don't know. I mean, until people really feel that if they hear of child abuse, they report it without fear of, or if I don't report it, I'll be taken to court. People should just report it. If you see it, say it. That's so important. We all have a place to do that. I had the only car crash I did, one really bad one, and I got to talk to a couple of sisters, and they just went, "Oh, but we trust the brothers." Hello? Don't. We all need to take responsibility. We're all part of it. Don't know what other people think, but we've all got to speak up. Oh, I can't hear you, Rick.
Well,
sorry.
no, I'm here.
what's going
I'm just listening.
All right.
But you're making a lot of sense here, and you're absolutely right. We all do have to speak up, exactly. And the sum total of all of us speaking up, something, it's making a difference. The countries are now catching up with these bums. Yeah.
And it's also exactly what Watchtower said they wanted to happen is happening. For those of you who have seen the BBC documentary 2001 called Suffer Little Children, maybe Barbara Anderson was in that. I can't remember. I know she's on later tonight. But they had the guy who did Silent Lambs. He rang in. They recorded him ringing into Watchtower's headquarters saying, we've got this child abuse case. And he spoke to the legal department. You can see this. It's BBC programme documentary. You'll find it on YouTube and elsewhere called Suffer Little Children. You'll find it 2001. And the legal department said to him, I would just, don't do anything. Leave it to Jehovah. Jehovah will bring it out. That was Watchtower's legal department's answer. Jehovah will bring it out. And now Jehovah has been bringing it out, or someone has, or countries have, or common sense, or love, or whatever has been bringing it out. They're going, oh, it's apostates and it's lies. So be careful what you wish for.
Well, there you go. Now, you mentioned BBC. Now, just in the last week, they also had a little expose about child molestation in the Watchtower. Did they not? Did you hear about that?
Oh, I missed that. I don't watch BBC a lot.
Yeah.
So I missed that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
in fact, I was going to talk about that a little later on too. It's in fact all this
Okay.
week as I go through the news, I check it all week long to see the top stories that are going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. And this week it was just filled with child sexual abuse, and the world is catching up on these people. How many bad stories can you read? I mean, it's going to get to the point as they're going door to door now. And I can just imagine if I was a householder and I seen 2 Jehovah's Witness men come to my door and knock on my door, my first question would be when I open the door is, which one of you guys is the pedophile? I mean, that's the image. That's the image that is being put out through these news broadcasts. Geez, to look at a Jehovah's Witness going down the street, I can just see a person saying, those guys are pedophiles. Those guys are pedophiles. Who wants that image? But they're getting it, and rightfully so. So that's good. Well, thank you, sister. Thank you for calling in from the United
you.
Kingdom. Thank you very much. Well, there you go, friends. I mean, we have people call in from all over the place. We don't know where they're coming in from. They come from Australia, England. We've had people calling from Israel, Russia, all over the world. And, they listen into the 6 screens. And you know why they like the 6 screens? It's not because of me. I would like to think so, but it's not. It's because they hear women like that was just on here. That woman gets attention, doesn't she? She's a sensible-minded woman. And there's plenty of people they call in. That's what they want to hear. That's why 6 Screens is gaining a lot of popularity. People love to hear from people calling. And so don't you be a stranger. You call into the 6 Screens. Let us know what you think. Well, I mean,
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Farron.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ken from the Northern Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah. Okay, I've been listening with interest and everything like that, and I'll comment like I did before. The information that we're hearing is only a fraction of what's going on. There's probably hundreds upon thousands of cases we don't hear about. And I'm very happy to hear that some of the governments are starting to show some movement right now in trying to crack down on this pedophilia and everything and so forth. And as we heard earlier on the 6 Screens, there's more violence being perpetrated against Kingdom Halls and Jehovah's Witnesses and so forth. I believe that some of this is due in fact to these governments not taking action on these pedophiles, and then some of these people, get the attitude that, well, we can take the law in our own hands then, which they shouldn't be doing, but they are doing. So it's about time that the government starts cracking down on these illegal activities and so forth, and starts just putting this Watchtower Society into place. It's time for us to bring back freedom of religion. And freedom of religion means you have a right to go to any church you want and so forth without fear of being, a victim of violence, or without fear of having your children being a victim of violence in those churches and so forth. So we just hope that for the best down the road, and hope that this is finally going to come to an end.
Well, that's what we can hope for, Ken. And I'll tell you what, it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good because, as I was saying earlier, all of these news stories, including the next one that we're going to be talking about, is out there in the state of Washington. Once again, we just talked about all the firebombing of Kingdom Halls out in Washington. But, Washington State, they're letting Jehovah's Witnesses basically get away with murder. Yeah, it's one of the only states that lets Jehovah's Witnesses hide behind child sexual abuse, really. And this got my attention. Yeah. So thank you for calling in, Ken. Appreciate it. So this.
Okay, we'll keep listening.
Okay, thank you. So this kind of caught my attention. In Washington State, they do not have an obligation in place for clergy members to report child abuse. Can you imagine that? They do not have a state law that a clergy person does not have to report child abuse. Now that is something else. Now, nearly 20 years ago, after the aftermath of the sexual problems the Catholic Church was having, they tried to put laws in place in Washington State to make sure that children or child sex abuse could not be hidden so easy by church leaders. But it was shot down in the state government. Can you believe this? That a state would actually shoot something like this down? So in Washington, clergy does not have to report sexual abuse in their churches, unlike teachers, physicians, and law enforcement. Now, you say, well, that's crazy. So this one particular congresswoman, or state legislator, I should say, she's been working hard trying to get the state of Washington to come up with a new mandate that would actually make clergymen also responsible for reporting child abuse. but they keep trying and trying, but boy, they're having a hard time. So, well, why would that be? Well, why would a state be so unwilling to pass a law? I'm just going to get in here. Friends, you want to stay muted. I got to go through here and mute people. We want to make sure you stay muted until we open up the lines here. It'll be so much easier for me to do this. But you say, well, why would a state not have laws on the books for clergymen to report child abuse? Well, I'll tell you what, it stems from penitent privilege. That's the term. You see, what some of these states and some people believe is that if you go to your clergyman in confidence and you tell him something that's going on in confidentiality, that you have a privilege not to have to report that to the state. They call that penitent privilege. So they're trying to get rid of that. They're trying to make it so the clergy in Washington state should be mandatory reporters. Now, I'm going to put up on YouTube and Facebook, you're going to see this woman right here. Her name is Mariah Hughes. And boy, I'll tell you, she's a former Jehovah's Witness. She's suing the Jehovah's Witnesses for failing to protect her from Elihu Rodriguez. Brother Rodriguez. Well, what he did is he actually pleaded guilty to felony child rape in 2019 against poor Mariah. And boy, there's a big article written up in the paper about it. And this is what I'm talking about. People, how is it that people are going to miss news like this? How is it that Jehovah's Witnesses are missing news like this? So right now, friends, just to give you a little idea, there are 43 states that list clergy as mandatory reporters. All right, 43 states that actually you are a mandatory reporter. If you're part of the clergy, and if you're Jehovah's Witness, even though they say they're not part of the clergy, don't play with terms. They are part of it, and they have to report. And actually, it's a law in 43 states. I'm sorry, 43 states. But there's a loophole. There's a loophole in a few of these states that do not require clergy to report. And because of the fact of spiritual advice during confession. Friends, this has to do this stems from the Catholic Church. I mean, who were the front runners of confession, right? It's the Catholic Church. So they gave the Catholic Church a little leeway on this, where they don't have to report abuse. So other religions are going to fall right in and say, well, listen, we do the same thing. So in Washington State right now, I don't want the witnesses to hear this, but if you're an elder in Washington State right now, you do not have to report child abuse to the officials of the state. That is sickening, isn't it? It really is. I mean, I didn't realize that in some of these states it is still so backward. But you know, Jehovah's Witnesses, lawmakers are aware of this, and they do bring the Jehovah's Witness into their discussion in making these laws, because Jehovah's Witnesses are known for covering child abuse. But here's an interesting thought. They even say in their report that Jehovah's Witnesses right now are exempt, but the headquarters instruct them to call the headquarters. Now, yeah, that's what you do. I mean, even in the elders book, even the newest one, every state, I mean, if you are an elder and there's child abuse going on in your Kingdom Hall, you're instructed to call the elders. I mean, they got to get this right. So if your state makes it mandatory that you have to report, the Watchtower's got a kind of, but they fudge around. They play around with it. They don't want you to report it, but they don't want to be going on the record saying not to report it. So I just wanted to bring that up tonight. It's hard to believe the states that still don't require clergy, Jehovah's Witnesses, to report. But, even again, another story on sexual abuse is mentioned here as well. And it's on BBC News, as I was just telling that sister that was calling in from the United Kingdom. So even on the BBC News reports this week, they had a story that was highlighting, from what I see here, I believe it was this week, and they had a number of Jehovah's Witnesses talking about the abuse that goes on in the Watchtower. I mean, how many stories are you going to get like this? How many stories are you going to get? Well, anyways, you're on with me. My name is Rick Farron. You're on JW World News. What do you have to say? Go ahead, hit *6. Would like to hear from you. What do you want to say? Anything got you fancy here tonight? Go ahead, speak up. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, what do you really talk about?
Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Oh, Rick, I hope I can comment. I hope it's okay.
Of course.
I'm just thinking thank you so much. I'm thinking 3 points, my brother, on the incredible story that you're bringing out. It's a shame that God's organization has to police God's organization. They have to be policed by Satan's organization. That's a shame. And I wanted to say, second point, when I was 9 years old, I went out in street service regularly with a dear brother Jenkins, an older brother about in his late 50s, early 60s. And I would be picked up and taken alone, just him and me. He was a wonderful brother. He was very protective and very sweet. But if he had been a pedophile, there would have been no witnesses. And if he had been a pedophile and molested me, I would have been so traumatized. I would probably never have told anybody because I would have been so scared. The third point I wanted to say is we have to stop and think, and we've heard of this many times, that these secret elders meetings that they have, they're secret, and they were told, and they have brought out many times, that these elders in these secret elders meetings were given secret instructions that were not written in the book, that they had to write instructions on how to handle specifically child molestation reports. They had to write these instructions in the margins of their secret elders book, so that Watchtower leaders could claim, oh, we never told them to do this, or we never told them to not do that. Elders, these elders, which I call the policemen of the Watchtower, they are held responsible to carry out the orders, instructions, and mandates of the leaders of the Watchtower, while the leaders of the Watchtower giving the instructions are completely safe from any kind of prosecution. These poor elders are under terrible pressure to follow the Watchtower's instructions and mandates. They're making themselves completely vulnerable and liable to the authorities, the secular authorities, and open to prosecution and possible imprisonment. They're basically being thrown out into the wind, thrown under the bus. It's a bit like they're between a rock and a hard place. And I'm so glad you're bringing out the advice. If you're an elder, get out. Thank you so much, my brother.
Well, thank you, Emery. No, we've been suggesting that, and there's elders listening in. There are elders listening into this program tonight. There's an awful lot of PMO elders that are physically and mentally out. They're in a real predicament, friends, aren't they? An average rank and file witness, it's easier for them to kind of play around the edges. But for an elder, they got to be very, very careful. But we do have elders listening in here tonight that are active elders that are doubting PMO elders. Why? I'll tell you, it's just amazing to me, all of this stuff. Isn't it? Does someone want to say something? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, Rick, I want to answer some of your questions.
I have plenty of questions, so go ahead, fire.
This is Gigi.
Yeah, Gigi. We got some issues with your phone.
Oh,
Gilbert. Okay, go ahead. Talk now. I think you're all right.
The reason the government has not done much is because Washington, D.C. is filled, and other state governments are filled with the same type of individuals. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out why a government official will give a blind eye to this legislation that wants to protect children. And we see it in the news how the children are being trafficked. And so we know that the government is not the answer. We, the people in our local communities, and thank God for all of the apostates fighting and beating this this drum. We have done a lot, and we have to do it. Now, the other one is child molesters are repeat offenders, so you have to report them to the police, because when I reported them in Yuma to the police, I told the police officer, okay, you have no evidence, but he's going to repeat again. And as a police officer, you have to understand that 1 time, 2 times, 3, 4, 5 allegations, eventually, as a police officer, you're going to have to start doing your due diligence, because this guy's not going to stop. So all child molestation, everything that you know has to be reported. And the last thing you said was about the Bible study. Watchtower had all these children's books, and that opened the door to the Bible study with children, especially those that had no dad at home. Growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and also being an elder, I've noticed that a lot of the people that in the Spanish congregation that wanted Bible studies, the women wanted Bible studies for their children. And because they were single mothers, or the father would not take spiritual matters seriously. So these children's books and Bible study opened the door to all of these molesters. And the last thing I was going to ask you, Rick, is, hey, next weekend, let's do a Halloween special so people can call in and tell their Halloween horror stories growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, I think that would be fun.
Well, that would be horror stories. So, well, maybe we'll do something like that. Yeah, maybe we'll do something like that. Yeah.
That's all I got. I'll see you later.
Well, that's a lot. Well, thank you, Gilbert. Always good to hear from you. Always have some good comments to make. Don't be a stranger here. Come back and see us soon. So that's Gilbert Gonzalez, as a little satire. He's running for governing body. So give Gilbert your vote. Well, you're on JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. Well, we talk about it, right? We talk about it. Man, there's so much to talk about. Sometimes I wonder where
Rick?
Yes.
Oh, this is Ellen again from California.
Hello, Ellen.
I want to relate my story real quick. When I was about 10 years old, I was molested by my dad's friend. And he came to pick me up for something, for some sleepover or something, to take me there. And he molested me on the way there. Well, I was about 10, and I couldn't keep that story to myself. But I couldn't tell my father. So I told the neighbor across the street, who happened to be the molester's sister. And when I told her that, I swore her to secrecy, which I was 10. I was afraid. But anyway, she then told me that he molested her daughter, which was his own niece. So he was molesting her. Well, she kept it a secret, and I stayed away from that man and never got molested again. And then about 20 years later, I'll say, it came out because she had an argument with the family, and then she told on her brother that he molested her daughter and me. Well, I was not a witness, but the elder from the congregation called me, and I told him what happened to me. And as it all turned out, they let him go because even though there were 2 witnesses, I was not a witness in good standing, so they wouldn't take my testimony.
You're kidding me.
How about that?
Is that what they told you?
No, I am not kidding.
How old were you?
I am not kidding.
How old were you?
I was 10, and then by the time when he molested me, and by the time it came out, I was probably about 22 years old or so, or maybe about 25.
So they use that excuse. They use that excuse.
Yes.
That is horrific. They use that
And
excuse.
to tell you that, I had told my husband about it, and I had told my parents by then about it, but they didn't care. And at the next assembly that they went to, that my mother went to, she went with my sister, and my sister happily related to me how she talked to my molester and how he was in a bad shape and all that. Yeah, she went and talked to him about, Mr. Nice Brother.
Oh, that is horrible,
Yep.
Ellen. That is horrible, Ellen. My
Yeah.
goodness gracious, that not only was it traumatizing enough being molested, but to have these idiots say that you weren't in good standing, so it doesn't count.
Yep.
That's not right
Two
at all.
witnesses.
Jeez.
There were two witnesses. So and you know what? Even then, I mean, I was out and everything, but I had no idea there was a 2-witness rule. I had no idea.
Well, I'll tell you what, most of the Jehovah's Witnesses that are in there right now have no idea. They don't have any idea that child molestation, sexual abuse, and everything else is even going on in the Watchtower. They have blindfolds on. They just think this is God's gift to the religion, the God's gift to the people of the earth. This is the only channel of truth. Jeez, man.
Let me tell you this. The worst part, not just to me, what happened to me was, thank God, a one-time thing. And, but my own witness sister married she didn't know it. She was 17. She married this man, and he turned out to be a pedophile who molested his own grandchildren, and they were babies. And my niece, whose children are grown now, but he molested them, she's still a witness.
I'll tell you what, I mean, you sound like you're doing okay in life, and I thank God that He gave you the strength, the inner ability to go on. A lot of people would not even be able to do that. You're an amazing person to be able to do that. You have been really beat up by this terrible organization.
They are the worst. They're evil. I have stories I haven't even told, but when the subjects come up, I'll be calling in.
Well,
because from birth to 18, a lot can happen to a person.
Well, you sound like
in the witnesses.
Well, you sound incredibly strong. And, don't you ever hesitate from coming on as you did here tonight and tell some of these things. We want to hear them. You know what this does? And I know this sounds like kind of a rash, crude statement, but we all want to hear the dirt that goes on in this organization. Now you say, well, Rick, why would you say that? Well, let me tell you why I'd say it. I want people to be shocked. And I advertise our program sometimes as no fluff, just shock. So there's people listening in here tonight, and they're on the edge of their seat, and they're saying, listen to this woman. They're saying that she was unfit. She was not even capable of being able to get any justice because she wasn't a witness in good standing. That is pure baloney. And, this is all but this will all catch up on them. They're not going to get away with this. They're not. The Calvary is now showing up. Yes.
Well, I'm grateful for your show that you're warning off other people to be in this horrible cult. And it's just, I'm grateful for that.
Well, thank you. And I thank you. I'm grateful for you coming on and sharing these things with us. Now, you come back and see us soon. Now, you stay in contact with us, okay?
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, there you go. See that, friends? Do I sit here and make this stuff up? That's why we got in trouble years ago. You know, we were the first to come on live. Even before they had live streaming, we came on the telephone line, and we got a really bad rap. You look on Reddit and some of these other places, we got a bad rap. Oh, Rick sensationalizes. Rick brings these people on that, they give false stories. I don't do that. I mean, in the beginning, no one ever heard of this. You could read websites, but 17 years ago, there wasn't anything that was live like that. So when we came on, people wouldn't believe it. Even ex-witnesses wouldn't believe what we have to say. People came on, they told this story, and they said, there he goes again, sensationalizing. There's no sensationalizing going on here. What you're hearing is from real people calling in from all over the world that are telling their stories of horror in the Watchtower organization.
Well, hey, Rick, as far as that two witness thing goes, when you're molested, but let's put on our common sense hat. A molester or rapist doesn't go out and call a friend and say, hey, I'm going to molest a woman. Will you come with me as a witness? What kind of nonsense is that? That makes no sense whatsoever. How can they even think of something you need to have a sister is raped or molested or almost molested, but if somebody the only other witness there is the one who's raping or molesting her. So how did they even come up with that? I don't even understand. It's crazy.
Well, surely there are so many things that does not make sense, and that is one of them. If a witness, most witnesses, like I just told Ellen, most witnesses don't even know about the two witness rule. But you want to be a state prosecutor, really, because that's the question that you would ask. Who is going to have two witnesses to an act like that? You're not going to have it. So that gets them off the hook immediately. But these are now.
And remember back in the day, because I think we're not that far apart in age. Remember, I don't even know if it's still in effect, but remember when they said if a sister was actually raped, had sexual intercourse with her attacker, she would be disfellowshipped? Like, what sister goes out at night? People get raped daytime, nighttime. What woman, any religion, goes out to do her daily business and doesn't think she's going to get raped? But of course it happens. And according to your religion or cult, like the witnesses are, if you get raped, you're going to be kicked out of your religion. Remember when they had that? If the sister got raped, had sexual intercourse with her accuser, she would be disfellowshipped. Do you remember? That was in the 70s, 80s?
Oh yeah, and then and also the articles in the Watchtower at the time was suggesting that if a woman didn't scream.
Right, yes. If she didn't scream. Yes, exactly. I forgot that part.
So
yes, if she didn't scream.
If she didn't scream, then she was enjoying it, basically, is what they were saying.
Yeah, exactly. How did they come up with that? How? Just, now I'm out. I realize they're all crazy, but how did they come up with that one? And like I said, that came up in the 70s or 80s. The witnesses were way into effect before the 70s or 80s. So all this quote unquote new nonsense. How did they come up with this? And people are still following them, especially after that one. About if the sister did not scream. Exactly. The only witness there, even if it went to the court, would be her accuser.
Yeah. Well, see, listening to you, Shirley, you have your head on straight. You really, really do. And you're a sharp woman. And I just can't see how some of this stuff just flies over the heads of people. This is something.
I don't either.
I don't either. It's
Shirley, I've got something to say on that. And I was so comfortable listening on YouTube without the phone and really enjoying the wisdom that was presented here tonight on these cases. The thing with not calling the police, it's important if a minor or a woman is assaulted that the police are called, because medically they have something called the rape kit.
Yes.
And that is proof. It's a delicate subject, but that is proof. And so this two witness rule was a Bible scripture. It has nothing to do with U.S. law, and it has nothing to do with the police and medical procedure. So that's why I get so hopping mad
because I know that people are harmed and that justice isn't done.
Yes,
So
I do know about their rape kit. Yes, but just the if you don't scream. I mean, you know,
that
like I
ridiculous.
said, the only witness to even if it went to court, even the Supreme Court, was your accuser, and they're trying to get off saying I didn't do it. So that's totally crazy. I'm like, how do they think of this? And how do people still follow them? That's the main thing.
Well,
women.
that's the sad thing. That's why they didn't want any of us to have any education, because we have to realize that we are citizens. It is the United
But that's
States
not
for
education.
you and I.
That's common sense. That's common
Well,
sense.
I know, and every high school girl should know that, and that should be like the health class and things like that. But the rape kit then acts as evidence, as you know this, but some of our listeners might not. The rape kit then acts as a evidence of proof of harm done.
But it's like even before you get to the rape kit, you have to scream or get this fellow. I mean, even if Baptist, Episcopalian, you know, anybody has that, you have to scream or you get kicked out of your religion. Just think about that.
Well,
Just
if
think
they
about
kick
that.
you out, maybe if we're kicked out, we should thank them. But that's another issue entirely.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, this will come up with the elders and all their BS nonsense, this, that, and the other, and now you got to scream. And like I said, the witnesses have been around for quite some time, and that just came out in what, the 70s and 80s. I mean, it's like this new light nonsense. It's terrible, and people.
A lot of it is
people,
nonsense, and it goes back. There were cases of abuse in the 50s, and I think Barbara Anderson even noted some in the record in the 40s.
And before that, I'm sure, yeah.
And Russell and his philandering ways goes way back.
I mean, this rape is not anything new. Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, but how the witnesses handle it is just ridiculous. That's what I'm saying.
It certainly is. It certainly is, and it's not legality. It's not legality.
Yeah, that's all.
There are two governing body members that were molesters, and all you have to do is child molesters is go on YouTube, and you can find it very easily. I've just been looking at that the last few days.
You know, there was a Watchtower that was on child trafficking as a cover story, and I've been cleaning house and moving, and I think it was in the 80s. And before I threw it away, I sat down and looked at the copy, and it sounded like I don't even know the words to use, and I'm not often short on words. The copy in this Watchtower on child trafficking sounded like a lurid story. And I wonder if they're not even doing bigger things, because they have countries.
Well, Pixie, it's interesting you bring that up. They are doing bigger things. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. They're doing a lot of things. I'm willing to go on the record. Now, I can't say with full authority, but my own opinion here is even the governing body, the highest officials in the Watchtower, are involved with kiddie porn. They're involved with perverted sex practices. I had a personal friend right here in Massachusetts. Everyone knows him. Many discount him. His name was Mark Paulo. He's not living right now. He died. But when he was a young person, you can see it on YouTube. He's told his story numerous times that he was molested by a governing body member in Brooklyn, New York, back in the early 60s, late 50s, somewhere around there, as just a young man, by a man by the name of Leo Greenlees. That's who he claims molested him. And the governing body, even to this day, there are skeletons in the closet, and they're involved in some pretty bad practices. And I can listen. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be a whole lot more coming out, I'm sure. But as we all get
criminal.
It's all criminal, and
it's criminal.
Yeah, because what it is, Pixie, And, might be a lot of people that might not go along with this. I know I have a Christian feel here at times, but I have to say that whether anyone wants to believe it or not, you don't have to. You don't have to. But Satan is at work right now. Satan is at work right now. There's so much satanic influence on this planet right now that it's just overwhelmingly horrific. And something has to be a reason for this. There has to be a reason. I'm not going to get into Jimmy's programs and Reese and conspiracy and all of that, but there's so much evil among mankind, including even a religion that professes to be the only Christian religion on the planet. My goodness.
Well, I would say, I would amend that to say especially in religion, but that's just my view, that they have hidden in these groups for centuries, sadly.
Rick? Hello, Rick?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to comment about the rape kit.
Yes.
I had an experience, and the elders refused to accept the rape kit results, and which is the doctor's report, and the police report. I was told that it would have to be 2 witnesses. This was back in 1985. So that's
sister,
their
I have such
policy.
sympathy.
Thank you.
So,
but I just wanted to say that if you think that a rape kit or a police report is going to help you with these elders, that no, they don't think about that. And I don't feel sorry for elders at all. If they don't come forward, all they need to do, if there was 100 elders in the world that would get together, have a press conference, and say what's going on with this policy, this 2-witness rule, and how many witnesses are being affected by this, how many victims as children that have grown up and committed suicide because of what they had to go through. These men need to stand up and speak the truth about this organization. So whatever happens to them, I don't feel sorry for them at all. They need to take accountability and tell the truth. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, well,
Rick? Yeah, Rick?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to any sister that's ever been molested or abused in any way, I'm sorry that happened to them. But the thing is, what people are not understanding, any elder that does wake up and go, this is a satanic, demonic, pedophile cult, and tries to change something or say something or say, I'm going to call the police or we cannot allow this at the hall, that elder is removed and disfellowshipped. So, or it's just, this is how the organization works. And if anybody thinks that the society doesn't understand it or doesn't get it, that is inaccurate thinking. They know damn well what they're doing. They're Satanists and they're serving Satan, and this is what they do. It has nothing to do with, oh, they didn't understand it. And no one should ever think that they don't understand it. It's impossible for a group of normal thinking people that are concerned for people's safety and true morality to not get it. This is what they're told to do, programmed to do, and if they want to be company men and support this nonsense and garbage, then they're just as dangerous as anybody else. I don't care how nice they might be in the congregation. When that situation is triggered, they're as dangerous as the pedophile themselves because they're protecting them. But it is not absolutely. It is absolutely not true that they don't understand it. They damn well understand it. And they are Satanists and they're practicing their cult and their trade. This is who they are. And they're
criminals and they're praying, P-R-E-Y.
Well, Stephen,
again, I don't understand why people say, well, they don't get it. And the thing is, like I said, if you took 100 elders, 1,000 elders, it does not matter, because if they actually took a stand, they would be removed and disfellowshipped, and then they could not get their story out to anybody. And so this is just how it works, that they've got it locked up. You have to admit, it's their world, and they do control it.
Well, good comment.
Anybody
Very good comment, Steve. Really, no, you nailed it. I mean, that's it. They know what's going on.
Rick,
And
yeah.
you know what,
Karen?
Rick, to one more side point. If you look at the Society's latest post on jw.org, I think it's about nuclear war, but there's a picture of a large, like, fireball explosion, I think, from a nuclear bomb. I can't remember the context of the article. It really doesn't matter. But if you're familiar with subliminal imaging and you look at that fireball explosion, in there you will see phallic symbols in that fireball explosion. The one, if you look, it's just favoring towards the right side of the fireball to the explosion. There's a couple of phallic symbols, blatantly in there. Again, if you're not familiar with them, or sometimes it takes a little practice. It takes a little while to be able to spot them. But the more you see, the more you're able to decipher these pictures. But yeah, they're pretty disgusting pieces of garbage.
Well, we'll check it
Well,
out.
I love a good subliminal in an ad, so I'll have to check that out.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, check it out.
Well, I just want to go back to that sister that called. Do we have another sister on there? Go ahead, sister.
Rick,
Yes.
Rick, I wanted to talk to you about the documentary about the CSA Catholic Church called Mea Maxima Culpa, Silence in the House of God.
Yeah.
This brought out the CSA on the deaf community. So the reason why I wanted to bring that out is not just Catholic. You have to stop and think, what deaf children are being abused by certain elders, deaf or hard of hearing?
Well,
that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that's Guy calling in. She's got some issues. She's in a group home, and evidently this phone's ringing and what have you. But
no, I'm hearing guitar music.
Well, yeah.
I'm hearing Mulligania.
Yeah. Well, the phone's
My
ringing.
phone is ringing.
Yeah. Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have to let Guy. I mean, I like to talk to Guy, but we're gonna have to cut her loose here. So let me go back and just kind of see if I can't mute her.
Well, I think that's a very valid point, that a lot of deaf people or hearing impaired people certainly might be in a special situation of being preyed upon too. That is often true, that sometimes people that have special needs. That's
well, yeah, no,
I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure it does, Pixie. But I wanted to get back to that sister that called in. I'm not sure where she was. The one that said that she was raped.
I'm sorry, this is me again. I wanted to.
Well, go ahead,
bring
Ella.
up that-
Make it quick because we got some other things going on here. But what would you like to say?
There is a documentary from HBO. I think I mentioned that about CSA and Catholic Church. I would recommend you go look up the director's name, Alex Gibney, if you want to share those thoughts out. And there's a YouTube channel of Derek O'Hare who tried to expose the CSA problem in JW, but he himself got arrested. There are videos of him trying to expose Watchtower in the
There's
CSA.
several. There's one in French that was hard hitting from the Canadian news service. That was a documentary. There's a British one. The problem has been with the legal system in the United States, and they're hiding under freedom of religion. And again, the police need to be called in every instance.
Well,
So
yes,
we
they
talk about that a lot.
Well,
here.
yes, they do. No, I want to get back. Look, I want to get back to the woman that called in, and cut me some slack, everybody, please. Let me, it's my program here, so let's get back. We got people calling in that have so many important things to say, and I want to develop it a little more. Now, there was a sister that called in earlier, and she said she was raped, and they didn't believe her. There was a police report. Are you still on there with us, sister? Are you still on there with us? If you are, come on back on. See, this is why I want to.
I'm right.
Are you with us?
this is the guy.
All right,
calling in.
guy, I just want you to, just back off for a second, okay? Just back off.
Sorry about that.
This is a news program. I try to run it. People, I get emails all the time that I'm being interrupted. All the time I get it. Tomorrow morning, I will get emails for all of these people. I don't mind you guys coming in and talking. I encourage that. But it's my program. And people, I have a lot of things that, I'm trying to get to and discuss with people. And I don't mind you guys calling in at all. I don't. But, cut to the chase. Say what you're going to say. Don't hijack the program. Let me do my show. I'm not trying to be meanie here. But, I have the news to cover, and I get flack for this every Sunday morning. I look at my email. Why'd you let this person come in? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? We want to hear from people. We want to hear from new ones calling in. This is what this program's all about. And I know you guys want to be able to come on and talk, and that's wonderful. You do, and I appreciate it. But we got to let some new people call in and talk. Let's give them some room. Let's kind of open up the fold here and let them come in. So that's just my thought. I'm just trying to do a news program. Now think about it. How do you do a news program and then try to really develop a dialogue with people? And, some of these people are calling in. I wanted to talk to that woman. I had some interesting thoughts I wanted to ask her. The poor woman was raped in the Watchtower. Did anyone hear that? Did anyone hear that she was raped in the Watchtower? And when she even had a police report, she had hospital records, the elders discounted it, said it didn't count. That to me is important. I wish the woman...
That angered me, and I don't get angry easily.
Well, I would hope the person would call back in. All right. So
yes, I have sympathy.
Yeah. So let's see if we can't get her to call back in. But anyways, I mean, that's all you're hearing about this week is Jehovah's Witnesses, BBC News, Jehovah's Witnesses in the state of Washington, Jehovah's Witnesses in England, Jehovah's Witnesses all around the world, really. It's an open forum, and it's unbelievable how much news is coming across concerning the Jehovah's Witnesses. But anyways, let's move on. We'll move on to another subject here. We have Barbara Anderson's coming on here in a half hour. If you don't know who Barbara...
Can I just say...
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I've been thinking about this since all these calls about the sisters and screaming. Well, what about the brothers? I'm sure there are brothers that have been raped. I'm sure they have, whether they were teenagers or even, who knows, older. But do they scream? Have they ever reprimanded a brother for not screaming? I mean, I'm sure.
I always mention the minors, ma'am, because I know that boys and girls have been harmed.
Right, of course. But it's mostly centered on the sisters.
Mm-hmm. All right. So no, well, Carrie, no, you raised a good point here. Now, this is this to me strikes my fancy. So you're saying that this is centered around, well, first of all, let me just develop this fact. This is a fact. Jehovah's Witnesses have no respect for women. No respect. I had 3 sisters. I had 4 daughters. I grew up around women. All of them have stories to tell about the Watchtower. They have no respect for women to begin with. They don't. So it's interesting you bring up the fact, why don't they talk about this thought when it comes to a man being, because men get raped too. Did you know that, Carrie?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Men get raped too.
They do. And it's the biggest shame. They're more shamed than the women. I mean, women are shamed, yes, but brothers, oh, Lord, do they fight? Do they punch their aggressor in the mouth and then get charged? Oh, come on. I mean, this organization sucks. I'm telling you. It really, I mean, seriously, I've been through the whole 9 yards with them about abuse and sexual abuse and all of that. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They blame the victim. They ask the victim, what did you do to entice this person? Did you do anything? Now, I mean, how outrageous is that?
Well, they have this distorted image or view of women. You know, not all women are sex perverts. Not all women are going to jump in bed with the first guy that comes down the pike. But that's exactly how the Jehovah's Witness organization views women. They view them all with an evil eye. It's terrible.
It's outrageous.
It's men on a power
it's
trip.
outrageous.
Yeah,
It's a power trip.
It is. It's
But
brutal.
what about these guys? I mean,
It's a power
they're
trip.
never mentioned.
Yeah, it's
that's a good point, Carrie, because thinking of Bethel, and when Bethel first got started, it was mainly men. And I mean, you put any men, no matter what religion or beliefs, you know what ultimately might happen, like the guy Greenleaves. I mean, you know what's going to happen eventually. So yeah,
Right.
You are right. It's always women. What about the men? What about Greenleaves? Because things that happen in Bethel, I'm sure we don't even know about. Besides the things we do know about.
Well, I just wanted to take the side of a guy.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't make sense. Like I said, with Bethel, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Bethel was mainly all male for quite some time.
Well, the same thing with
on
the
a lighter
priesthood.
subject. On a lighter subject, you would really love the graphic novel Cult Girls.
I never heard of that.
It's brand new, it's wonderful, and the drawings are fantastic, and I couldn't put it down. And I was recommended to me by Linda James, and I got it, and I just was so happy after reading it.
Cult Girls.
Cult Girls. It's on Amazon. It's great. Well, I'm going to go listen now, and it was great talking to all of you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Rick, that I interrupted like that.
Well, no. Well, Karen,
but
no. First of all, they like you. That they like what you're saying. It wasn't. I don't look at you. You had something there of major circumstance. I mean, when you mentioned the idea that do boys scream, well, that kind of lit up YouTube, and that's a good thought. So I give you gold star for that. That's a good comment. Thank you, Kerry. Yeah.
Okay, I will mute now.
All right. Well, thank you. Always good to hear from Kerry.
You're welcome.
Wow, my goodness, friends, I have to tell you something. More and more people are finding out what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. We have a number of people. Looks like they want to come in. Do you want to come in? We've got a number of people. Go ahead. Now's the time. Go ahead. Come on, say hello to us.
Hi, Rick.
Hi,
Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard of a few cases with men. It's extremely rare, but they do sit them down. They do question them, give them all these humiliating questions that all amounts to, what the hell did you do to cause it? And it's very rare, and they have to be humiliated too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. There's this level of just absolute mortification for the men, especially if they have been taken over by another man,
Yeah.
It's pretty awful.
Well, I actually,
the organization has this non-trust for us, and that goes all the way back to the tree with the apple, and they consider women as being a temptress. So you cannot trust us because we might seduce you into sinning, and then you can't. And then we're the weaker vessel, So hell, what are you going to do with us? Tell us to sit in the corner and shut up.
Well, you got me laughing.
You don't like that.
Well, no, you got me laughing. But what you just said there is the absolute truth. That's how women are treated. That I see as absolute truth. You're treated as second-class citizens in this organization, and forget about even becoming anything of importance. If you're a woman in the organization, you get 10 shots against you. Forget it, Jeez.
Yeah, and I know you don't want the subject changed much, but Lori McGregor recently passed over, and she was one who was an excellent teacher. So once she left the organization, She knew how to take a stage. She knew how to deliver the gospel. She was an amazing ex-Jehovah's Witness. So there's that. Okay.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you, Linda. You're coming on around 11 o'clock tonight, so be watching after Barbara's program. Thank you. All right. Boy,
Okay,
I'm a man.
we got a
I'm
man.
a man that almost got that was groomed.
Yeah.
And hey, Rick, sorry I came back again. This is Gilbert, but I told a few people this story. When I was 16, 17, there was a Gilead graduate that would come from Phoenix to Yuma because he worked for the state of Arizona, and the state would send him down to Yuma for work. And so I was very inquisitive. I would talk to him a lot about, Bethel, missionary service, just a bunch of questions. What happened is he was a groomer, now that I look back, and he ended up molesting a 16, 17-year-old guy about my age in Phoenix. And the reason I know is because a good friend of mine who in Yuma also called me and goes, "Hey, Gilbert, did you hear the news?" He goes, "Why?" He goes, "They caught so-and-so, the Gilead graduate molesting." But anyways, what happens is they groom you by talking to you about sex, but he talked to me about sex like if it was like an education class. And I remember taking physical ed in high school, and it was very informative. But this guy would go into like great detail, like almost scientific detail. So as a 16-year-old kid, I'm over here thinking, wow, this is, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. But what happened is every time I would see him, like he would get a hotel room with the state, and he would try to get me to go over to his hotel room. And then one time I did go, and then he was like scantily dressed, he was like taking off half of his clothes, and I got the hell out of there. The only time I got, any kind of like my clothes off was in high school gym or junior high gym. But I just knew this is not right. I got the hell out of there. But I never put two and two together that that's what this guy was doing. But every time like I would meet him at a restaurant or something, the conversation would always eventually turn to sex, but he would talk about it in an education format. So once they caught him, he got his retirement and everything, and he left town. And he went back to Bolivia, where he was originally assigned. But that's what they do. That's part of the grooming process. It's they try to use the education. Well, I'm just trying to and kids, a 16-year-old kid. I mean, I didn't know. I wanted to know. And but when he invited me to his hotel room, and then he was taking off. He really wasn't taking off his clothes, but I mean. Like using shorts, and then, his shirt is off and his undershirt. I was like, no, I'm getting the hell out of here. And I'm glad I did.
Well, good for you, Gilbert. No, good for you. Really, because, there are groomers out there. Men, really, there are, and they'll go after men. They'll go after anything, really. Jeez.
Yeah, but you didn't know you were being groomed. That's the whole thing. I was 16. I didn't know I was being set up until later on in life, But this is how they work.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Gilbert. Well, why do you think there's so many sexually perverted people in the Watchtower? Why do you think that?
Well, they say birds of a feather flock together. So there has to be something like I mentioned in the chat that Watchtower writes these children's books, and they give you liberty to go to people's homes. So everything in the way the Watchtower is structured, it's like a pedophile's paradise. He's like, what? I can go and study with a whole bunch of the Bible with a whole bunch of children, and whose fathers are not home, and I can talk to them about sex, like if I were a high school physical ed. I think that's what it is. Watchtower has set up their system. They set up their Bible studies. Because they do individual home Bible studies. I think if you're going to do a Bible study, why can't you go to the Kingdom Hall where everybody's there? Why does it have to be in the intimacy of a home? So it's structured on purpose that way. It's structured on purpose. No Bible studies should be done in a person's home. It should all be done in a public place where there's more than two witnesses.
Well, the other thing too that we could add to your comments is the witnesses are very trusting, including even myself. Yeah. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I had 5 children, and four of them were daughters, And, they'd come to me when they were, younger, even, 10, 12 years old. Oh, Daddy, can we go over Sister Smith's house? Oh, we're going to have a little get together. And can I stay over there for a pajama party? I didn't think twice about it because I trusted the witnesses. I trusted them on the basis of what we were being told at the Kingdom Hall. But man, knowing what I know now, there's no way that I would let my daughters go to a sleepover, even my son,
Correct. But just look at their structure. Look at the way that the things that they allow. It's well thought out. I really think that the home Bible studies is well thought out from the top, and they want to have access. So, like I said, birds of a feather flock together. And I'll just say one real quick thing I heard a long time ago is how did all these pedophiles get to the top, and how do they get there? And it has to do with the termites. The termites, what they do is they find a host body. In this case, the host body is the Jehovah's Witnesses. It could be a school, it could be anything. But once the termite hits your wood, it starts climbing to the top. But as it's climbing, it's bringing another one and another one. So the reason why there's a governing body pedophile is because he left a chain. There's a huge chain that's going from circuit to district to city to city. And so when a circuit overseer becomes a district overseer, who does he give that promotion to? The one that he left behind. Well, he's going to give it to a fellow pedophile. And that's how they all move up. So whether it's in politics, in a school district, or in a religion, this is how they infiltrate. They infiltrate just like the termite colony. They find a host and they create a chain all the way to the ceiling.
Well, I'm not going to discount that one bit. That's what they do. Well, you're on the ball. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Gilbert.
Okay, but let's go. Rick?
Yeah, yes.
It's Steve. Again, he is bringing out that the organization has been infiltrated. No, when you're infiltrated, you're someplace good or someplace different. This organization seeks out pedophiles. It promotes pedophilia from within. This is not an organization that has been infiltrated by pedophiles. This is an organization that promotes pedophilia. Pedophiles have not snuck into this organization because it's extremely easy to get rid of them. With all the knowledge that they have and all of that, they can easily stop it and get rid of them. This is a pedophile organization. It hasn't been infiltrated by pedophiles. They've been brought in, and this is exactly what it is.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I really, really do. Steve, you're a good man, and I always appreciate you calling in. I know you're calling in for many years now, so always appreciate your comments. Well, anyways, I mean, that just about anyone else have any thoughts before we kind of switch gears here and get ready for our next program? Any other thoughts? Now's the time to do it. We'll give you a few minutes if you like. Well, anyways, we want to thank you for... Yes.
Yeah, just a quick thought.
Yeah.
A lot of the audience knows who John Ramirez is. If you don't, he was a Satanist, and Jesus pulled him out of that, and now he's serving Christ. He, as I said, he was a Satanist. He would tell you that there are about 10 organizations that Satan uses, and the number 5 organization that he uses is Jehovah's Witnesses. So that would account for the fact that there is a pedophile paradise, and everybody knows it, and it's coming to light. Thank you, Rick.
Well, that's good news, but it really, really is. And, you can sit here and you can say, well, Satan has nothing to do with it. But let me tell you something, and you don't have to even be a religious person to, when you talk about sexual abuse against a child, that's about as bad as it gets, isn't it? Man, it can just mess the person up for so many years, all their life, and their families get so messed up. People have been abused when they were little. It ruined their entire life. And you say, man, that crime should really be put on a place where nothing else even comes close. But sad to say, people now are just waking up to how evil it is. But who would make such an evil act? Who would encourage such an evil act? And you don't have to believe it, but the devil is alive and well, friends. I'm not preaching to you, but I'm telling you, this is not happening on its own. This is happening because of the influence of Satan, the devil, believe it or not. Well, anyways, we got Barbara Anderson. She's going to be coming on here very, very shortly. I'm just looking on my different YouTube feeds and what have you, and waiting for Barbara to come on. But boy, I'll tell you, we had a good program tonight. Lots of people are calling in from pretty much all over the world. So we're going to, Dick, I want you just to kind of hang in a little bit, just in case we do have a little trouble getting Barbara on. I might have to come on and fill the gap here for a little bit. But I just want to say that I want to thank everyone that's coming in here tonight. But there's one other thing I wanted to say, too, and it's about that forum online. It's called Reddit. You know, I have a lot of bones to pick with that forum. And they have like over 70,000 witnesses, ex-witnesses that go in there and write. And, you know, they claim they're really trying to help witnesses get out of the organization. But are they really? A lot of people on that platform, friends, I'm going to tell you, are Watchtower operatives. These are people that are working for the Watchtower. And they are anyone that is sensible minded, that comes forth with a real good message, they're going to tear it down. These are Watchtower operatives on that site. And if they're really trying to help anybody, have you seen the language that they use on there? Is a Jehovah's Witness going to connect with the F-bomb? Is a Jehovah's Witness going to connect with that type of language? The answer is absolutely not. So Reddit, it's valuable, but is it really? It's not. It's just an ex-witness thing. I have to tell you, I have a lot of bones to pick with it. And I wish the moderators would wake up and smell the coffee. They're letting that site go to hell in a handbasket. That's my position. Well, anyways, there's a 6-screen Sunday tomorrow. There's no doubt about it that we'll have people coming in. We have a number of programs you'll want to hear. We have actually Theology Matters. That comes on tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And, you know, theology does matter. You know, you were in the witness world, you believed in their theology. Well, take a look, and as we expose their false theology tomorrow, maybe you can pick up on some real truthful theology. And then at 1 o'clock tomorrow, we have Knowing God. We have a program where these two guys come on, they're Christian apologists, and they're gonna tell you why the Watchtower's teachings are wrong. And then we do at 2 o'clock, man, you do not want to miss this. We have a program. Anne Marie, she'll be back with us. She does 2 programs here on 6 screens. Her other program is ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their Christian testimony. She'll be on tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and we have a woman coming on that's going to tell you how she left the Jehovah's Witnesses, and now she's a real Christian. So she'll be coming on tomorrow. And then at 3 o'clock, we do JW World News. We'll be right back at it again. And then at 4 o'clock, we may not have Jay on tomorrow. Jay has a cold. He's having a hard time even talking. But we'll see what we're going to do. So we'll kind of wing it for tomorrow for 6-screen Sunday. So by all means, don't be a stranger. I'm going to check and see if Barbara Anderson is on with us here. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Rick, the occultist Aleister Crowley said that the most potent way to build witchcraft energy is to take the innocence of a child sexually, especially a young boy. And it seems to be that the Watchtower has that problem. There's a wife swapping thing in the fantasy football. In the Watchtower, there's a lot of sexual deviancy going on in the group, and there has to be an inner core of occult practitioners in this organization, Rick. I thank you for your work. Have a great night.
Well, thank you. I know what you're saying there. I read something before, too, that in the satanic world, pedophilia, it's disgusting to most of us, right? But in the world of pedophilia, in the world of Satanism, pedophilia gives more power to people. It enlightens them. It makes them more powerful. So, you know, these things take place It's just my thoughts. It's just my opinion. Well, we got Barbara Anderson coming on here next. Barbara Anderson, a real Watchtower researcher. She's going to be talking tonight. You don't want to miss the program. So I want to thank everyone for coming on. I do see Barbara is in our feed here. I want to thank everyone for coming on to our JW World News broadcast. And I want you guys to keep standing tall. Don't you ever give in, up or out. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, by all means, turn off the new light. Now, stay with us. We're going to end this broadcast, but we're going to go on the other side here. Come back in 2 minutes. We'll have Barbara Anderson on with us. Thank you very, very much. Well, there you go.